Hello and welcome. Today I would like to speak to you about Harry Anderson. You know, depending on your age, depending on how long you've been interested in magic, you might not know about Harry Anderson. I hope that's not true. Harry Anderson is certainly one of my favorite performers, and you know, he had a persona that was kind of a con man persona. Now, if I'm sitting here and I'm trying to consciously come up with a performing character to work in, and I decide I'm going to be a con man. I mean, that's not an easy persona to pull off in such a way that people really like you. And people really liked Harry Anderson. I really liked Harry Anderson. I'll tell you, when I was years ago, if he was going to be on Saturday Night Live, I stayed up to see it. If he was going to be on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson or whoever was hosting, I'd stay up to see him. Whenever he made a special appearance, I went out of my way to see him. When he did his own special, I couldn't wait to see that. I mean, I watched Night Court. I was a big fan of Night Court. I watched him when he was on Cheers, just because I liked Harry Anderson. And that is... you know, to have a performing career where people go out of their way to see you because they like you, that was Harry Anderson. And that to me, that's the goal of any performing career, of any performance artist. You want people to come out to see you because they like you. And it didn't matter. I mean, Harry Anderson did great magic, in my opinion. Great magic. You know, when I sit down, I try to evaluate, what am I going to do? What am I going to perform? What kind of material am I going to work on? I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be engaging. There are a few things I need. I care about angles, performance angles. Can I do it surrounded? All those questions come into play. How big is the prop? Will it fit in my case? You know, all those questions. But at the end of the day, you want to do magic that is wonder producing. That people sit there and go, wow, that was magical, man. And so Harry Anderson was that kind of a guy. He did magic that was wonder producing. Now, I want to give you some background on Harry Anderson. By the way, when I do these tributes, very often if I'm doing a life story, I try to put the life story in notes, so I might be reading some of this to you. But I also want to convey to you what Harry Anderson means to me personally, because that's what's most important. If I can get that across the camera, and into your living room or wherever you're watching this, if I can convey that, then I'm successful. So I want to give you a little bit of background about Harry Anderson. Harry Anderson was born October 14th, 1952. He crossed over on April 16th, 2018. At the very young age of 65, he died of a stroke in his sleep. He is best known to the general public for his role as Judge Harry Stone on the 1984 to 1992 television series Night Court. But he's best known to us, to the magic fraternity, as Harry Anderson, a great performer. And with a very, look at that picture, with a very well-defined stage persona. So I think there's a few things that we can learn from Harry Anderson. We can learn how to do character. And how he did character. Now, you know, a lot of you probably think, well, that's Harry Anderson. And to an extent, that's true. Great characters have a lot of us in them. That's entirely true. But great characters are also characters. Harry Anderson gave some thought to the development and the evolution of this stage persona. So they're not exactly the same. It's not like this is Harry Anderson. I think he was this to a large extent, but it evolved consciously over a period of time. Now, he started out busking. He was a busker in his teen years. He also performed with Renaissance-style festivals, particularly the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So that's kind of where he came up to speed. Now, you might recall that Penn and Teller also started in Renaissance festivals. So, and to me, a Renaissance festival is very similar to busking, because you have a large crowd passing through. The one advantage of a Renaissance festival, I think, is that people more or less expect to be entertained. They expect to encounter entertainers. And you have particular venues at most Renaissance festivals where entertainers perform. That's an advantage. As a busker, there might be city blocks, there might be areas of where you are that are actually set aside for busking. But in many cases, people are on their way somewhere and they're not there to be entertained. So you have a greater challenge busking on a city street than you do busking in a Renaissance fair. In a Renaissance fair, you've auditioned, you're part of the act, you're part of the team. As a street busker, it's a whole different story. But he did both. Started as a busker in his teen years, went on to Renaissance festivals. He made 8 appearances on Saturday Night Live from 1981 to 1985. And I think it was on the Saturday Night Live appearances that he was noticed for those producing Night Court. And that's how he got his show, Night Court. He also had a recurring role on Cheers as Harry the Hat. He played a con man on Cheers. So he took his character to Cheers as well. After the successful run of Night Court, he starred in his own television sitcom called Dave's World from 1993 to 1997. In 1987, he starred in his own magic television show, which I believe was called Harry Anderson's Sideshow. And I'm going to put a link below so you can enjoy. In 1987, he starred in his own television special, his magic special called Harry Anderson's Sideshow. I believe it's that. I'm going to put a link below. You can check that out. There are a couple of resources I want to share with you. This one right here, Harry Anderson Wise Guy. From the Street to the Screen by Mike Caveney. Now, Mike produces and publishes a lot of magical biography, a lot of magical history. I'm a huge fan of Mike Caveney. I'm probably going to do a video presentation on Mike alone, but this is one of the books that he wrote. He was a close associate of Harry Anderson. In fact, when Harry Anderson did his own special, 1987, Mike Caveney, I don't want to call him a stooge necessarily. By the way, if you don't know what a stooge is someone who is in the audience, masquerading as an audience member who has a predetermined role set by the magician. So the magician might say, I need a volunteer from the audience. People raise their hands. The magician calls on the person he's already worked out a routine with. That's called a stooge. But Mike Caveney was in the audience for the filming of that television special, and he was actually called on during, I don't remember the routine, I think it was the torn and restored dollar bill routine that he was doing. But it's a pretty funny bit. You should check it out, take a look. But I call your attention to it because when you see the interaction between Harry Anderson and the audience member, it's actually Mike Caveney that he's interacting with. So that's a little bit of trivia there. Anyway, this book provides a fascinating and well-written biography, but it also provides countless routines. Personally, I love Harry Anderson magic. I've performed a number of his routines. I do not do the needle through arm. I think it's a funny bit. But Harry has put his stamp on a lot of routines. And to say the least, he inspires me. Now, I want to share something with you out of this book because I think it speaks to who we are as magicians and who we are as entertainers and what it's like to be an entrepreneur. And I want to speak to this. So let me set the story of it. So Harry was married to a person by the name of Leslie Pollack, and Harry and Leslie performed together for many years. They evolved an act together. It was part mentalism and part magic. But one of the things they did, and here's a photograph of it right here. I want to share a little bit about this with you because this routine particularly inspired me. Here's what basically happened. Harry Anderson, now this will tell you something about the way Harry Anderson thinks and about the way we should think about the magic that we're doing. Harry Anderson wanted to do a straitjacket escape, but he realized that to be put in a straitjacket, get out of a straitjacket, is inherently boring. I mean, you get put in the straight. People know that you're going to get out, right? The question is, how much time is it going to take? Penn and Teller addressed this issue, and the way they did it, if you can imagine this, Teller was put into the straitjacket and suspended upside down by a rope, which was attached to a stool that Penn was sitting on. And in theory, Penn would read Casey at the bat. And when he was finished, he would stand up to take a bow. If Teller had not gotten out of the straitjacket, by the time he was finished Casey at the bat, the rope would release and Teller would crash to his head. That is interesting. It was compelling to watch. And when you saw Penn and Teller do the routine, Penn started out real slow with the rendition of Casey at the bat, and then he picked up speed. And Teller looks over, he's upside down, right? He's struggling to get out of the straitjacket. He's sort of like, what are you doing? You're cutting my time out here. So it was a compelling routine. It was very funny. I'm not sure which came first, Harry Anderson's or Penn and Teller's, but the way Harry Anderson approached this problem, he had his wife, Leslie, tied up to a chair. Then he got put into the straitjacket. Then it was a contest to see who could get out first. Now here was the funny bit. She was winning the contest. She'd win the contest. And Harry would notice that she was getting out, so he would rush over and he would push her chair to try to slow her down. Eventually, it looked like she was going to get out entirely, so he grabbed the chair and literally threw it off stage or threw it down into the orchestra pit or something like that. I mean, it was a frightful thing to see. But it was a very funny bit, and people loved it. And what it did was it made compelling theater out of a simple straitjacket escape. So this, by the way, when I saw Harry Anderson do this, at the time I was doing blue and gold dinners. Blue and gold dinners are a Cub Scout function, and they're great for magicians. I just loved blue and gold dinners because you had, generally they were done in a church hall. You had a stage, and you had this banquet hall full of people. And I mean, there weren't just Cub Scouts there. There were parents. There were families. It was a great event to be performing at. It was just a fantastic venue. But I wanted to come up with something that was fun for the Boy Scouts, you know, for the Cub Scouts that were there, as well as for the families to watch. I had a straitjacket. Now I did the sword basket at those shows when I had an assistant. Bear in mind that, you know, I couldn't always depend on having an assistant or a partner for those shows. So if I had a partner assistant, I would do the sword basket. I would do the sub trunk. I would do the linking rings, things like that. When I didn't have an assistant, I had to come up with other ideas. And inspired by Harry Anderson here, I came up with this idea of a competition. So what I would do, I would have a jar or a bowl of peanuts on one side of the stage and an empty jar on the other side of the stage. I'd get a Boy Scout up, I'd hand him a spoon, and I'd say, look, here's the competition. You got to move the peanuts one at a time from that side of the stage to this side of the stage using only the spoon. You can't pick them up. If it falls off, you got to go back and start over again. That was the deal. Now, everybody in the audience was going to cheer for this Cub Scout. And there was a prize involved. Usually it was a Snickers bar or something like that. So there was a prize. And I would show the prize for us. If you win, you get this prize. And if I win, you know, I'm keeping the prize. So the Cub Scout was motivated to do it. Now, the way I started the routine out, imagine this is a full stage, okay? So the bowl was here with the peanuts in it. The other bowl was here, and I'm in the middle. So by the way, and when you set up a competition like that, the people that you bring up to put you in the straitjacket are particularly motivated to make sure you're in there pretty good. I mean, they would push my arms back. they would strap me in real good. So here's the way the routine progressed. You know, I'd start struggling to get out of the straitjacket. I'd be doing this. By the way, you can get out of a straitjacket pretty quick, but you don't want to get out of it quick. That's not what you want to do. So I'm struggling to get out of the straitjacket. In the meanwhile, this Cub Scout's running back and forth with peanuts. I'm watching. The crowd's screaming at this point because he's winning, just like Leslie was winning over here. So I, you know, fearing that I'm going to lose, I would run over and kick the bowl. So I kick this bowl. So imagine this, okay? The Cub Scout runs this way. I run this way, kick the bowl. He drops his peanut. He runs back. I run this way. So we're crisscrossing on stage. I kick this bowl. I'm trying to put distance between the bowls to slow him down. Now the audience is booing, right? They're booing and howling. And eventually, I time it so that he's got maybe one, maybe two peanuts left to transfer, and I'm out of the straitjacket, and I'm putting my arms up for applause, and nobody wants to applaud because I cheated. But they love it, you know, they love it. So I end up giving the Boy Scout the prize because I cheated. But that idea came from Harry Anderson's version of the straitjacket escape. By the way, when Harry Houdini did the straitjacket escape, he didn't do it. He didn't stand on stage and get out of a straitjacket. That's not the way he did it. He was suspended from a high rise several stories up. So part of the theater in watching Harry do that was not so much can he get out of a straitjacket. Everybody there knew he was going to get out of a straitjacket. What was thrilling was wondering if he was going to fall 10 stories to his death. That was thrilling. Of course, he was secure. He wasn't going anywhere. But seeing someone suspended 10, 20 stories up in the air, struggling upside down to get out of a straitjacket, that's good theater. Harry Houdini knew how to put on good theater. So does Harry Anderson. Now, I digress. So Leslie and Harry are doing the act together for many, many years. They've got some measure of success. They're opening for Kenny Rogers. They're doing Saturday Night Live. They're doing other events, and they're getting there, you know, as far as their magical career is concerned. But then Leslie gets pregnant, and you know you can't take a pregnant woman, tie her in a chair, and throw her in the orchestra pit. That's just not a good idea. So Harry has to come up with another idea. And, you know, his mind's working on this. And the beautiful thing about struggling creatively is that magic just seems to happen. You know, I mean, you have this problem. You know you got a problem. You got to work it out. And it just sort of comes to you. I don't know how that works, but it does. So let me read this little story to you, giving you the context. This is page 68. It's a story of the grappler. Now, if you haven't seen the grappler, I'm going to go ahead and put a link below so you can watch that. Very funny routine. Let me just describe the routine for you a little bit. He did, which basically is a bill. I'm not going to talk about his method. I'm not going to do that. What happened was he borrowed a bill from the audience, he tore it up, and then he restored it. And then he offered to explain how he did it. And he would drop his pants. He would drop his pants right there on stage. And he would demonstrate this thing called a grappler. He would attach a cable between his knees, and when he moved his legs back and forth, this thing would shoot out his arm. It was hysterical. There was no way he did the trick that way, but it was just funny. It was just visually funny to watch him do it. And it turned out to be one of the best bits he ever did. Now, it was great magic. He did this fantastic at your fingertips torn and restored bill, but the explanation was hysterical. Here's the backstory that I want you to hear. It's true, Harry and Leslie had been playing some lucrative dates, but the work was far from steady. Therefore, when Harry paid a visit to Owen Magic Supreme and fell in love with a knee-operated sleeve holdout, he had a decision to make. Should he or shouldn't he spend half of their savings on a piece of collectible magic? He knew the answer was no, as he paid for the new treasure. During the drive home, Harry had to figure out how he was going to convince his expectant wife that buying a gambler's holdout was a far better investment than frittering it away on a crib. Incredibly, during the 40-minute drive back to their Hollywood apartment, Harry blocked out his latest and greatest creation, the grappler. The routine that evolved during that pressurized ride home has since been featured on casino stages in Las Vegas, Reno, Atlantic City, and entertained millions on Saturday Night Live and Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. Now, I share that with you. Picture this. Leslie's pregnant. They need every dime they have. But Harry has to come up with an idea for doing a solo act because Leslie's not going to be performing with him. He's in he's in a magic shop basically, or Magic Supreme. To say that's a magic shop might be an insult to them. That's one of the best magic shops in the world. But he's in this shop and he finds this prop, and it's a very expensive prop. And he thinks, do I buy this or do I buy a crib? You know, magicians, entertainers, entrepreneurs. It's one of my favorite sayings about entrepreneurs. An entrepreneur is someone who jumps off of a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. That's Harry Anderson. That's an entrepreneur. That's the way it's done, folks. That's the way it's done. And I realize that it's difficult. I realize it's challenging. But, hey, that's Harry Anderson. Listen, Harry Anderson, I adore the man. I adored him when he was alive and performing. I adore him still. I think that this persona, the con man persona, I wouldn't do it. It's not right for me. But Harry Anderson pulled it off in such a way that I think universally the man was loved. He really, really was. And you know what? He never, ever made his magic about, aha, I gotcha. He never, ever did that. It was always in the context of a story that he was telling. It was always come on along for the ride sort of thing. He never demeaned and he never insulted his audience. And I think that's part of the secret of success. Not only for a guy who's portraying a con man on stage, but for anyone. You just do not ever demean your audience. And Harry never did. Wise Guy by Mike Caveney. Pick it up if you can. Read it. It's a wonderful read. It's a wonderful book. You know what? Listen, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate when you watch. I appreciate when you comment. And if you have not subscribed already, please do so. The subscription button's right there. I appreciate it. Feel free to ask anything in the comments. You know, it's been a while since I had a request. I love requests. I really do. I really sink my teeth into those things and get after them. So comment below, subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time. Have a great day.